All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lottie, establishing an open standard for vector animation. I'm Brandon Wilson. I'm a senior software engineer at Google. I work on the Skia team, working on Lottie and other graphics libraries for people.
I'm Mattia Basaglia. I'm principal R&D engineer at Lottiefiles. I also worked on Glaxnimate and other open source tools in the Lottie space. So first, an introduction of what Lottie is. Lottie is a JSON-based vector animation program. So being vector graphics, it has infinite scalability, unlike raster graphics, where most people might be familiar with. Lottie itself has several editing tools to create or modify animations, and it's also supported by several libraries and players on multiple platforms. A bit of history. So in 2015, Hernan Torrisi released Body Moving, which consisted of an After Effects plugin that exported the animation as a JSON file, and also a web player that would render that JSON file as an animation on web pages. Then Airbnb adopted internally that format and developed iOS and Android players as well to roll out the animations on their various apps. After that, several different companies also started adopting this animation format. And finally, in 2024, the Lottie Animation Community was established to finally properly standardize the format.
Okay, so with this growing community, collaborating between the members became very important. We had all of these different authoring tools and players, and we had to make sure that they all worked well together. You know, the designers, they kind of expected the same experience regardless of where they authored it, what platform they're playing back on. Developers and contributors, they wanted to make sure that the changes that they made were stable and that behaved the way they expected. And you know, with how distributed everything was, we're seeing it's painful for teams to collaborate. They didn't have these centralized channels that they could work through and make sure that we could really provide the best experience for everyone that we could. So with this, we decided to start the Lottie Animation Community. We did this through the Linux Foundation. You know, they were established and open source to kind of get these things out there. The Joint Development Foundation provided a really lightweight framework that we could use, and this allowed us to quickly start the Lottie Animation Community and have a really lightweight process to work with, where we wouldn't have to go through a lot of the overhead and kind of bureaucratic overhead that comes with other standards organizations. So who's involved with the standards committee? We have a lot of different studios and developers that are working on creating Lottie animations. We have tool vendors that kind of use Lottie either directly as part of their experiences that they're authoring, or that are having tools out there. And we also have a number of independent contributors that are using Lotties for various purposes.
Okay, so within the Lottie Animation communities, we have several contributors, and we need to ensure that everyone is aware of what we are talking about, and so to align everyone. Also, different parties might have different opinions on what things should be included in the standard and how things should work. So we try to make sure that everyone has a platform to voice their opinions and to reach consensus within the community. The most important thing, though, is to maintain backwards compatibility with existing players, so existing animations still work according to the specs. Recently, we released the 1.0 version of the specs, which only includes the most basic part of the animations that is supported by all the existing players. The specs contains the JSON schema, which is machine readable, but also the human readable components like documentation and interactive examples. We also started the process of IANA registration, so we have internet media type and also file extensions .lot because previously Lottie animations were just distributed as JSON files, so this marks a file as an actual Lottie animation. So why standardize? Since there are multiple players, it means the ecosystem is quite healthy, but then everyone implements things slightly differently, or different players might have support for different features because there wasn't a central place where new features could be shown and standardized. So with this standard, now we have better interoperability, and we're also producing validation tools that help ensure that the JSON files that are produced by an editor will play correctly on the players. Now we have a brief showcase of where Lottie is being used in the real world.
All right, so what's next for the Lottie community? We have a lot of improvements to the Lottie spec plan for 1.1. We want to add more interactivity to these animations so that our users can actually play with these and trigger additional states, making them a much more rich experience. We want to improve our accessibility support by adding more built-in accessibility markers to these Lottiefiles so that players can give our accessibility experiences a much better experience. We have more plans around improving the tooling and validation, particularly around player profiles, so that the players on these different systems can declare the features that they support, and we can provide validation tooling that will check individual Lotties to see if they can fully play back. We want to add more documentation around layer effects. These are things that may change, like the colors, the spatial transformations on animations. There's really a whole lot you can do here, and we want to support it better. We also want to add more support around text within animations. This is a pretty complicated space that we didn't tackle for 1.0, but we definitely want to include in future variations. And so, if you're interested, how can you get involved with the community? First, we have our website in the top right here. You can find links to our roadmaps, our documentations, our specs, really everything we talked about here. And we love to get review on the specs. If there's additional features or functionality you would like to see out of Lottie, we'd love to talk to you about it and collaborate more. We'll also be having an unconference session on Wednesday at 15:05 in the Onyx Lounge. And so if you'd like to learn more about Lottie, talk about your use cases, if you're just generally interested in the open source process and how we came to found the Lottie Animation Community, we'd love to share our knowledge with you. And motion deserves a standards. Let's build it all together. All right, that's our presentation. Anyone have any questions now? Do we have time? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so the question was talking about AR and VR and how these new systems coming online, how we're thinking about animation there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it was considered as a use case, like maybe having, I think it also works with Lottiefiles app, where you have like a picture and you use your phone and you see like an animation instead of the picture. So it works well with those, but by itself the format is just for animation, so it's not specific to a domain, but it does work with AR fairly well.
Yeah, and I will say, like, if there are specific concerns around AR, like, we'd love to collaborate with you and, like, get involved with the community and see how we can enhance this to really fit everyone's needs. Yeah. Yeah, so the question was, like, why is Lottie from different from SVG and other animated formats? So SVG is also a vector-based format. I think that's the closest comparison. I think, SVG kind of has a very has a long history and it's done a lot of different things. And I think it can do some animation, but it definitely doesn't have the expressiveness that like Lottie has, which was really why like Lottie became popular over SVG. Most other animation formats tend to be raster-based. So these, you can't scale them to different screen sizes, and they tend to be like more larger file sizes, which is also a major concern among many design authors.
I also have something to add. Like, there are a couple features that Lottie has that SVG doesn't have, but I think the main reason why Lottie became popular is the support of editing tools. Like, there's not many popular vector animation programs that output animated SVG, which is a bit of a shame, but Lottie was started as an export from animation programs, so it was popular with designers, not just developers. So I think that's the reason why it grew more than SVG.
Any more questions? Yeah, so that's one thing. At Google, we're actually working on Lottie for embedded for some of our internal clients. And, it really depends on the tooling that you build out and the environment that you're running in. For like web players, we're building on top of either Canvas or the SVG for backends. So that can be limiting, but when you are building a Lottie player from scratch, you really do have a lot more to get the best performance out of it. Yeah, so two questions there. The first was kind of talking about other platforms, gaming platforms like Unity, and if there's support for Lottie there. We haven't really explored that specifically. I know there's a lot of like multi-platform Lottie players out there. So for any game engines that were interested in working with Lottie, I think that'd be pretty quick to integrate with one of those players, and so they can play it back.
Yeah, I have some context. There is an open merge request for Godot. I think the importer doesn't render the Lottie live. It converts it to like a sequence of raster textures. I think there is some discussion of changing it so it will actually render the Lottie at runtime, but it's still in development, so it's not in production yet.
The second question was about AI-generated Lotties. Yeah, that's not something we've looked too closely into yet. Definitely the platform is out there, so anyone who does want to experiment with that, I'd love to see what they create with it and how we can make that a great experience.
Yeah, Lottiefiles Creator does have that feature that you can create vector graphics from a prompt and then animate with different prompts. So the first prompt would generate a scene. Then there's some system that detects what each object is, and you can use those objects. For example, if you generate a sunrise, then you can say make the sun actually move, and that will generate the animation. Part of this is still in development, but some things are already available in Lottiefiles Creator.
All right, I think that's good for time. If you have more questions, you'd like to talk more, we'll be hanging out here after, and we'll have the unconference session later this week. Thank you, everyone.